Hey everybody, I'm Joe DeGanzik and this is Smarter Home Life. It is that time of the month again, time for some smart home Q&A from you, the audience. These usually come in from a handy little form located at smarterhomehelp.com. It's just kind of a quick little link instead of going to the website and trying to find the form. Send in your questions there. I get back to you in a reasonable time frame. And if you've got super complicated questions or things you need some hand holding on, check the box for a smart home consultation and we can chat in real time. Let's just jump right into it. First one, and I'm probably going to paraphrase this a little bit, coming in from Jamar. So Jamar writes, "Hello Joe, I love your channel and have been watching ever since I got my first Echo and Hue lights a few years ago." Well, thank you for being a long-time viewer. I'm glad that I can help out with your knowledge. I now have 2 Echoes, 2 Google Home Minis, Hue lights, Wemo switches, 2 Harmony hubs. 2 Harmony hubs, that's pretty impressive. A SmartThing tub, a few sensors, and a partridge in a pear tree. No, he didn't write that. My wife and I are buying a house, and we're excited to be able to create my own full smart home, full smart house. And I guess they had been living in an in-law's basement for a while. My first project is security in the front door. And here we've got the question, this is where the question came from. The door, like most I've seen, has 2 locks, but all smart lock systems I've seen are made for 1 smart lock. That's generally, you have basically the handle, you know, whatever that, if that's a special handle set that might be a little bit fancier, or just the standard, you know, the standard handle that you grab and you just open it, and there's no fancy kind of vertical door handle. And then generally, of course, you have your deadbolt. So he apparently has 2 locks, could be 2 deadbolts plus a door handle, I'm not sure. And it could be actually, it's just a doorknob that's got a lock in it and then also the deadbolt. So, or maybe it's 2 deadbolts and a doorknob. Now, I already responded to him, but anyways, this is kind of a unique situation. So the Schlage, this is, he writes, the Schlage Z-Wave home keypad lever for the bottom, which that's what I'm assuming. So he's got the keypad, wants to make that actually automated as well, which generally you tend to leave alone. So the Schlage Z-Wave home keypad lever for the bottom and the Kevo 2 for the top. I'm going to take all my current things with me, so they should work together. Also, I'm adding a Ring Pro doorbell to the system. That's great. The big issue is I have 5¼ inches to fit the 2 locks in. I wanted an August up top, but it wouldn't fit. Do you foresee any issues with this? I can't seem to talk this afternoon. Thank you in advance for your advice. Sorry for being wordy. No problem, I'm being wordy. It's better to be more explanatory than ever. So I had responded to him and made some suggestions, and so what I was guessing, again, is true, that he wants to automate both locks. And generally, you tend to not automate the bottom one. Usually, just automating the deadbolt is usually enough, and then generally you'll just leave the bottom one unlocked. That's generally what I do. But that doesn't mean that you can't. So the issue is you've got the Schlage Z-Wave, and I'm assuming, again, he said he's kind of moving these from one place to another, so I'm assuming you're trying to make the existing ones fit on the new door, which may not work, because he also talked about an August, so I don't think you have 3 of these. But my suggestion would be, for the top one, there are some smaller smart locks available. I was thinking about the August, the newer generation that came out last year. They have that one that's a little bit slimmer, which is 2.6 inches wide, but it's 4.8 inches tall. They had to kind of fit some of that technology in there, so they had to make it a little bit taller, even though they made it slimmer. Because some doors have the issue of, if you don't have enough clearance to the side of the actual lock, the door won't close, and you have a problem there, because these smart locks are all relatively bulky, so they tried to make one that was slim on the width. The other 2 options that you could look at are the Friday lock, which claims to be the smallest smart lock on the market at only 3 inches in diameter. And it has kind of a cool knob. Literally, the entire thing is the knob. It's not as big and bulky as far as just being a big smart lock like the August, the traditional August, which is 3.4 inches. And it's I believe it's Scandinavian design. Again, we've got these strange names: the Friday, we've got the Sesame smart lock, we've got the August. What's next? The October and the Thursday smart locks. I give up at this point. But anyways, the Sesame is a little bit different. The dimensions on that, because it actually looks like an old-fashioned kitchen timer. The height of it is 3.9 inches. So again, bigger than the August, and 3.36 inches wide. So it's about the same size. It just looks a little bit different. It's not as thick. It's only 1.65 inches, kind of comes up from the door in terms of depth. So this industry, the category continues to make relatively large locks, unless you're getting one that is fully integrated, like he was talking about for the bottom, and then you might leave the deadbolt alone, but it's generally a better idea to automate the deadbolt and then leave the bottom one just spinning. Not spinning, but just not lock it manually, just leave it unlocked. So it is a little bit of a personal preference thing. Those are my suggestions. Really, you're gonna have to go in and make some measurements and just try to figure out where things are. That's pretty much what's on the market at this point. There have always been a couple of Kickstarter-based projects. There was the Okie Dokies from a couple of years ago, but the challenge is some of these companies just can't make it, so we see some of them come up into the market and then die relatively quickly. The only ones that really are around are Sesame, Friday, August, and you'll see the options obviously from, like he mentioned, Schlage and Kwikset and Yale, of course. I would say go with automating the deadbolt and then leaving the bottom one as just a nice fancy handle, and then just leaving that unlocked. So that would be my solution. Thank you again to Jamar for writing in, and now we'll take a little bit of a break for a house ad. For the very first time, Smarter Home Life, that's me, myself, and I, is going to be covering the CEDIA show in early September. That's just about a month away. The CEDIA show is kind of the high-end show of the smart home, the connected home, AV, and all the different technologies and systems that surround it. I am heading out there and I'm going to be covering the event, and I want to create a special offer for those of you, the audience that watches these Q&A videos are a little bit more engaged and tuned in. So I wanted to offer you guys something, and I'm trying to offset the cost of this trip to make it a little bit more reasonable for the show's budget, and to offer you something extra in return. Some exclusive content, the ability to tell me, hey, I want you to cover this company a little bit further. I want you to cover this product. CEDIA is going to be wonderful. It's going to be fantastic. I always get to see the news kind of secondhand, but this time I will be there covering it, and it's just going to be a fantastic show. And I think it'll bring, even for the public content that I create for the general audience, it's going to show everyone kind of what else is there for the smart home that's not just the regular consumer gadgets that you can find on Amazon. What is everyone else doing? The people who can spend tens of thousands of dollars perhaps on these really high-end home installations. And this is the stuff that's truly inspirational and really super innovative. So I'm looking forward to that. If you can help out, go to the website that's on the screen and you can contribute directly and try to offset the cost and get some really cool exclusive content that'll be made available after the CEDIA show. Okay, so question number 2 comes in from Anthony, and he writes in, hey Joe, I recently stumbled upon the Smarter Home Life YouTube channel. I have found your videos super insightful. Well, thank you. I do hope that I get information across that's actually helpful to everybody. I am in the process of having my house built at the moment, and making it a smart home is high on my priority list. This will be my first time using smart home devices, so I am largely going off of videos I have been watching on YouTube. I'm in the Apple ecosystem already and plan to utilize HomeKit to run the home. I'm going to kind of skip through a number of his wants. He wants the HomeKit hub, obviously for Apple TV, HomePod, August Smart Lock, Ecobee, thermostat, Lutron Casita for lighting, and so forth. But I'm going to jump down to his particular issue, which we don't necessarily have a direct solution, but I have some suggestions. And this comes up, and I sometimes have to say, well, I'm not quite sure on this. I do have one particular project that I haven't been able to wrap my head around. Our patio door is a 16-foot glass sliding door. That's big. That's 16 feet wide. I don't want to cover it up with curtains since it's kind of a focal point, and he had sent me some photos, and it looks like it's going to be really, really beautiful. and it really opens up the living room. And I had thought about maybe purchasing 4 Serena by Lutron smart shades, which are compatible with HomeKit and other systems within the Lutron kind of family, to put over each glass door panel. So this is one of those, it's 16 feet wide, but it's separated into separate, probably 3 different, four different panels. So one of those kind of expanding sliding sliding doors. It's a door, not a window. But this seems like it will be way too expensive. Any thoughts? You're right, it is way too expensive. Generally, the blinds industry, the smart blinds, and if you're ordering anything that's custom made, it's just expensive. I had come up with a couple solutions. I said, you know, you could do vertical blinds because they at least will mostly hide themselves, especially if you do where they open up from the center and they'll retract all the way to the sides. He wasn't sure of that idea either. It's kind of like the last possible idea. I gave him some solutions or some areas in terms of for motorized blinds, and again, he doesn't want to put drapes on it. So one of the ideas that we landed on was electrochromic glass. This is that dimmable glass that kind of looks like LCD, because basically it'll go from perfectly transparent or near transparent and have different levels of opacity until it gets to where it's opaque and you can't see anything through it. It'll still transmit light, and if it's completely dark outside, you'll have kind of a dark-ish window. And so I was thinking about that this morning, actually, when I was coming up with the questions and the kind of question list, and I went back and I looked up some information for him. And I found a couple of solutions, because if you order this glass that's like pre-tinted and it's pre-designed, it's prefabricated, that gets to be insanely expensive. But there are a couple of companies that have come up with a film that can be applied to glass. One of them is called Smart Tint at smarttint.com, and there's a couple other ones that electronichouse.com has covered. I'll probably put these links in the video description, and I already sent it off to Anthony. If I have the name right, yes, I'm scrolling up and down here. But anyways, that may be a solution. My only concern with it, I always think about windows at night and big surfaces at night that aren't closed up by blinds or drapes. Because if you think about it, if there's nothing to show off in terms of a backyard that's, you know, beautifully lit up with landscape lighting, or a pool that has a water feature that has all kinds of beautiful lighting, if there's nothing there except just darkness, then if it's not covered up by some kind of shades or drapery or blinds, you have what was a focal point in the daytime just gets to be this large amount of very just black, basically, because it's night and that's all you're seeing. And it can kind of create a strange look in a room. So that's why I always think about that it's a good idea to have some sort of drapery, perhaps, because that could actually brighten up the room and remove that dark spot at night. I started doing some pricing on Smart Tint's website because they have some DIY solutions that you can price out. They have some solutions that can be dealer installed, and I think I tried like 20 inches by 20 inches and it was like $200, I think. So even the film can get pretty expensive. And again, for a 16-foot 4-pane sliding door, that's still a lot of square footage basically to cover. So all of these solutions aren't perfect. One solution specifically for retrofitting existing, because I like the retrofit concepts. If you can get something like cheap blinds or cheap drapes and then retrofit them with a kit that'll allow you to motorize them and link it to a smart home system, that's usually the best. The smarttint.com does say they can be linked to certain smart home systems. There's a company called Axis, and this company makes a controller that's a retrofit kit for basically for vertical blinds, for drapes, anything that has one of those chains that's a kind of a continuous loop, a chain or a cord. It attaches to the bottom of that and basically motorizes it. And that's really helpful for if you've got something that has 2 different chains or 2 different cords, such as something with vertical blinds, because then you can automate both aspects. You can automate basically where the blinds, you know, basically adjust from being closed to open, and then where they'll completely open up to both sides, or if they come from one side and they go to the other side. So that's kind of a cool solution for just chatting about other solutions for other alternatives when you don't have something like a sliding glass door and you have traditional windows and window coverings like blinds. There are, I know my Smart Blinds has kits for existing large slat blinds for windows. They will also sell you a customized solution of a brand new set of blinds. So that's a little bit of the long answer. It gives you some information. I already communicated with Anthony. Anthony, thank you so much for your longer worded email, but I think we've gone back and forth, and please let me know what your ultimate solution is that you decide to go with. I think he's going to do I think he mentioned that he's going to go for a consultation at some point in the future. So I look forward to working with you. And thank you again for the email. And let's move on to the third and final question. Okay, so the third and final question for this month's Q&A, July 2018, comes in from Richard. And Richard writes in, I love your videos. Thank you so much. I love making them, even though it's 109 degrees outside and the air conditioning is off, so I'm sweating like crazy. I have learned so much from them and have slowly been making my home smart. I'm needing an outdoor motion sensor that will turn on outdoor dumb lights through a smart switch and send a notification to my iPhone when motion is detected. I would also like to be able to control the time of day the automation of the lights happens. I don't need the lights to come on during the day. Does such a device exist? Okay, so through a couple of emails with Richard, he let me know that he's basically in the HomeKit and Apple world, so he's going to stick within that world. He has a couple of Hue motion sensors for the indoors already, and he's probably going to get another one. And I wound up just recommending to him that as long as you're not in an extreme environment and it's protected in terms of it's under a patio or an awning or something, you can generally use motion sensors for the indoors for outdoor purposes. But you do have to be careful in terms of you need to point them in the right direction so they do pick up the motion that's desired, instead of pointing it potentially like from the front door out to the to the yard, and then it might, I mean, usually their range is not enough to where, unless you're right on the street, that it's going to pick up cars and people walking on the sidewalk. So if you're set in a ways, you're going to be okay. But generally the problem is, we know that outdoor motion sensors are generally tied to outdoor floodlights, and they control the lights and nothing else. And generally there really aren't any, and I say any with an asterisk. I did my own homework and research, and if someone points out an outdoor motion sensor that is Z-Wave or something, obviously Z-Wave is not HomeKit compatible, but we could get him something that would actually work that way. I didn't find anything that was a dedicated outdoor motion sensor that could trigger something else. Again, they're generally just tied to those motion sensor lights. So if you have something, this is the motion sensor I've been fiddling with for a while from Fibaro. This is the it's small and circular, and you can easily drop it. But you could use something like this. There's a HomeKit version of this. There's a Z-Wave version of this. This is the Z-Wave version that is talking to the SmartThings hub. And you could mount this outdoors. Again, just make sure it's protected and it's not an extreme weather environment. It's not like super crazy cold in the winter or super insanely hot in the summer like it is here. And as long as it's in the shade and it's not subject to extreme environments, environmental, I'm going to put this guy down, environmental conditions, he's going to fall off the counter there, then you should be okay. And then what you can then do is, and I don't know if he already has his, the lights, I would assume it's the lights outside that are tied into a switch on the inside. I don't know, he didn't mention if those were already on a smart switch, but for that, you can practically use anything that's going to be HomeKit compatible. Here's one option. I have yet to review this, but just to give you some examples, this is not the HomeKit variety, but they do make one. This is the Leviton. So this is a smart switch from the company Leviton that's famous for, a lot of electrical work and outlets and all kinds of things. So this is just their Wi-Fi dimmer. They make a switch version of it. They make one for Z-Wave. They make one for HomeKit. A number of different varieties that you can use there. And then how you tie that together, basically, once you have all this installed, is you set up the within the Home app, you set up the motion sensor. You set up a little automation that if it goes off, then you're going to trigger the switch to basically come on for some certain amount of time. And you can control that amount of time, and you can also set it so that if it's not doing it during the daytime, during certain hours, basically, if it's not between sunrise and sunset. He also mentioned he wanted to get an alert to his iPhone when the sensor was triggered, and that's really easy to do. Once you have the sensor in place, you can long press on it, then press on details at the bottom and go to notifications, and you'll be able to set it for, include this in notifications, and then you'll be able to actually set even time and hours, and if you're away from home, because again, you may not want to get alerts if you're already home, but you can make that choice. And then if it does trigger, it'll send you an alert anytime there is anything triggered. I have behind me, I have a HomeKit door and window sensor on the front door, and I have it set so that it does not trigger me with an alert about the door opening unless I'm not here. And I don't want that alert if I'm not here, unless it's my landlord's coming in for some strange reason, because it probably means that someone broke in. So don't want that alert, but you can get it. But in Richard's case, getting a motion alert is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means someone's coming up to probably the front of his house. So that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you, Richard. That was, I think, the simplest question. So I hope all that information that I got to you was helpful. And, again, with all the questions that come in and I get back to you, if you're working on a small project, let me know how it turned out. Send me a photo, a quick video or something like that. Not necessarily that we have to feature it on the show, but I'm always just curious to see how these things work out. So that's it. So if you have questions, of course, write in. smarterhomehelp.com is the quick form. If they're complicated, if you want some hand-holding, one-on-one real-time chat, check that box to set up a smart home consultation. I love doing them. I've talked with people literally around the world. It's really fantastic. And otherwise, be sure to make your home just a little bit smarter every single day. It just takes a little bit of time and effort, and you can watch videos like right here on Smarter Home Life to learn how. Otherwise, I'm Joe DeGanzik. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.